sbagliata, messa fuori, c'è Pirlo, ancora Pirlo di tacco, tiro,
Hello and welcome to this week's AC Milan Talk podcast. I'm your host, Amit Paul, and I'm delighted to be joined by Jack Cowlin. Jack, how you doing?
Yeah, very well, mate. Very well. I was sorry not to be here last week, but really enjoyed the show. Couldn't believe when it sounded like you were wobbling a bit on your boy Donnarumma, but I'm pleased that you brought it back when answering my question. So can't wait to get stuck into exciting summer for Milan.
Absolutely, it's all kicking off, so we'll get stuck into that. No Jason tonight. You swapped roles. He'll be back next week. But still, there's plenty on the agenda. So we'll be talking about Milan's summer signings so far, signings on the way, and we'll discuss Gianluigi Donnarumma's situation, plus plenty more. But first, Jack, let's start with the signings that have already arrived. Obviously, I didn't get a chance to talk to you last week about them. It's all looking pretty rosy at the moment. We've snapped up Matteo Musacchio, believed to be around 18 million euros, and Frank Kessie, a 2-year loan deal with obligation to buy, and I believe that's a 28 million euros at the end of that 2-year spell. No complaints from me, Jack. Both players exactly what we needed. They fill two really important roles in the team. I've been pining for like a long-term partner for Alessio Romagnoli in the heart of the defence. I think and I hope we've got one in Musacchio, and we've been dying for like a real powerful presence and energetic and tenacious player in the midfield, and I believe Kessie ticks all those boxes as well. Just looking at it from a financial perspective, I know you were all over the Kessie deal on Twitter when it broke that it was initial loan deal. Talk to me, Jack. I couldn't be happier with these first two additions to the squad.
Yeah, mate, screw no complaints. I'm over the bloody moon with those. It's unbelievable business. You know, Musacchio, first of all, you know, he ticks all the boxes at centre-back. I think as long as he's fully recovered from that nasty injury he picked up a year or two back, which I presume he has, having passed the medical thing, I think he's a great fit. You know, he's got great ability on the ball, but he's also a towering figure, and really excited about him and Romagnoli as a centre-back pair, and as you know, as long as they both stay fit. That's the thing for those guys, isn't it? I think both had a few injury issues in the last couple of years, but awesome business, and you know, for a proven centre-back leader, sniff of a price there at 80 million. Do you know what I mean? It's you know, you can go out and sign a superstar name, but it will cost you twice that money. And I think Musacchio has been doing it for a club under the radar a little bit, and such. So awesome signing that one. And then yeah, Kessie's a joke, isn't it? You know, the makeup of that deal was an absolute steal. You know, I can't believe that you were able to get him so unchallenged. You know, I think I'll just give my thoughts, but you're going to have to explain to me the sort of the financial constraints on the other Serie A clubs and why that deal was able to happen, really, because it just seems crazy to me that Atalanta just kind of let him go so seemingly at the first bid. You know, you would have thought that there would be loads of suitors across Europe, and they would have been aware of that in terms of, right, we can play clubs off each other and really drive this the money up and such. But yeah, they seem really happy with what you put on the table, and obviously it was done really quickly. So hats off to Milan for getting that one done so swiftly. You know, he's a game changer for me. I really think he is. You know, you're a basketball fan as well, and we talk about franchise players and stuff like that, don't we? And you know, for me, he's got everything. He has got absolutely everything to be a real game changer. And you know, with those two centre backs and him in front in that centre mid, mate, I'm pumped up for next season. Bring it on. Let's get going now.
Oh, I can't wait. No, you make a really good point on Musacchio's price tag. I think if you look back and just look at people like John Stones and those kind of players that have gone for so many millions, I just keep looking back and thinking, we've just signed a guy, 26 years old, just about heading into his prime, and we've snapped him up for 18 million euros. Hopefully he'll complement what we've got already perfectly. I just can't see the downside in this deal. I think everything points in a positive way. So
no, and you look at again, obviously, I don't want to have my blinkers too much on in terms of the Premier League and such, but what it instantly made me think of is who have been the best centre-back signings in the last, 5, 10, 15 years or so. And I instantly think of Vidic and company. We've got before big clubs really started sniffing around, that they were doing it at their clubs on the European scene and in their own league, but not making huge waves. Obviously, at Tottenham, we've got both Vertonghen and Toby, more recently and stuff. And, you're paying 10 to 15 million, which is the same for Masaccio and stuff. But these guys have gone on to be best centre-backs, globally. Everyone can make arguments and stuff. And he just... As I said, we were linked with him a few years back, and I was really excited about all the scouting reports and all the times I then went on to watch him and things like that. And, mate, I think, awesome signing. And at that money, pretty low risk as well. Do you know what I mean? It's not like you've blown the budget on someone who isn't, definite. Obviously, it's a new league for him, and there's a bit of adapting. But, as I said, I think his attributes are going to be brilliantly suited to Serie A because... He's a tower, defensively rock solid, but he can play as well, which is great next to Romagnoli. I think they're going to make a really good pairing.
100%. Cannot wait to see them two link up. And then just going back to Kessie, Roma were interested in him. But I believe we basically trumped them in terms of personal terms. We offered him a little bit more in the wages. I think we even matched their offer to Atalanta. Okay. But yeah, there was also interest from the Premier League, so I don't really know where that all disappeared to for us to kind of... Like you said, it almost did feel like everyone kind of fell away and we just stormed through and got it wrapped up and delivered, almost instantly. But it was quite strange, it's not...
But the makeup of it then, so explain that to me. Obviously 2 seasons loan. Why would Atalanta agree to that? Or is this just another way of explaining how... different payments on a deal are made? Is that the thought? Or sort of, I just can't quite get my head around. I was like, what the heck? So there's not a huge, large upfront fee going on here. This seems too good to be true.
Yeah, from Atalanta's perspective, I haven't got an answer. I genuinely don't understand why they'd agree to doing this, waiting 2 years for that massive payment to come through, because it's going to happen. It's an obligation to buy, so it's not as if Milan can just... keep him for a couple of years, then think, actually, no, we don't want him, send him back. We have to pay that money. But I don't get it from Atalanta's point of view. I get it from Milan's side of things because I'm assuming we're taking financial fair play and all those things into sort of perspective. Yeah. So in that sense, postponing this massive payment for 2 years is going to be a huge help in the short term. So that's a genius move as well, in my opinion, from Sone Mirabelli. So
you just think... it's, from your side, it's an absolute win-win, isn't it? For sure. There's no negatives whatsoever. In fact, it's it'll be hard to beat as one of the deals of the summer, really, in terms of the actual business behind it. But just from their point, it's just, I don't know if you were offering them a couple players or there was something that they were getting back from you. But it just seems as though, as I said, they've seen one offer and gone, yeah, crikey, we'll take that for some unknown reason, like they're in real financial trouble or something. Yeah. But I don't quite get it. And as you said, not just in Serie A, but in Premier League, in La Liga, in Bundesliga, all these clubs, he would walk in to top level clubs, Champions League level clubs, and he would be a key player, you would think, given his performance last season. So, again, we can only be over the moon that he's come to Milan.
Exactly. No complaints on that side. Another man that's supposed to be signing for us tomorrow, in fact, he arrived in Milan tonight. He's going to have his medical in the morning. I'm not sure if he's going to be unveiled tomorrow, but it's only a matter of time. Is Ricardo Rodriguez. Talk that it's a deal worth 15 million euros plus bonuses.
Okay.
Jack, I can't lie. I think we've spoken about it previously, but I haven't seen enough of him to make a 100% judgment on whether or not he's a good signing or a bad one, whatever. But for that kind of money, for it's a position that we've been desperate to fill for years now with a long-term solution. Players have come and gone. Then we've got De Chilio potentially moving on this summer. Again, it just strikes me as another really, really sensible move. They've obviously done their homework, and I'm assuming he ticks all the right boxes for Montella. So I can't, say anything negative about this deal either.
No, and again, right there with you. So again, it's so impressive in terms of you could have easily gone out and just spent a fortune. I think Jace alluded to it last week in terms of, you kind of thought that you might be held to ransom on a few of these players, but another he's not going to jump off the page and be signing of the season or anything like that. But in terms of, when it comes to sort of people adding to the team and improving the team, he definitely offers that. I think, as I said, I have seen probably a bit more than yourself on him, and defensively really sound, not a problem on that front. There's a lot going forward, got beautiful left foot and offers a lot there. Awesome athleticism, up and down that left flank all day long. And something that Milan fans listening might not be aware of and stuff, he is really, really adept to playing in a 4 at the back, but also if you do decide to go with this 3 at the back, perfect left wing back as well. He's really got the ability going forward and then also the stamina and pace to track back defensively as well. So, it gives Montella that ability to sort of look at the formation he wants to play, and knowing full well that left side is taken care of. If it's a 4 at the back, he's great defensively. He's not going to leak too many issues and stuff for you on that side of things. But then also, if you need him to be a bit more attacking and things, he's definitely got that in his locker as well. So again, just that sort of really good starting 11 improving signing for what we're talking 10, 11, 12 million pounds, as you said, 15 million euros. It's nothing these days, is it? What's that? It's chip shop money in the day of football nowadays. So, great signing.
No, it's music to my ears then, because I think we'll talk about him in a second, but there's talk that Conte might be signing for the right side. He can play right back, right wing back. So that flexibility of going with a 3-man defence, if we've got those wing backs in place, then that's perfect as well.
And if there's injuries, he has got, because of his attacking ability and such, it wouldn't be what you would look for as an ideal, but just because of his size, he's a big, he's a unit of a player. He's a bit of a man mountain for a left back compared to many wing backs these days. So if there are injuries or red cards, as we know Milan like to stack up the issue and stuff, and you're playing the 3 at the back, he could potentially slot in as that left third centre back as well. That might potentially be an option. It's not what you're signing him for, but that is the depth of options that he gives you.
Perfect. Also, another thing that strikes me is the fact that we're going to have like champagne football in the back line alone. You've got Romagnoli, Musacchio and Rodriguez, all technically gifted, all good on the ball. We're going to be playing some nice football next season, I think, hopefully.
Fingers crossed, mate. And it comes from playing from the back, doesn't it? Do you know what I mean? And in modern football and stuff, it's really important, and great that you've got ball players there. When you looked at the midfielders this year, sometimes going backwards and it was quite pedestrian and that side of it, I can't see that happening. I think there's going to be worldy miracle passes going on left, right and centre.
Good stuff. I look forward to seeing it. Another name that's potentially going to be moving to Milan this week is Lucas Biglia from Lazio. This one I am split on, to be honest, Jack. Okay. On one hand, I believe it's a great signing. He's proven over the last 2 years with Lazio he can deliver in this league. I'm not quite sure of the stats, but as a creative sort of hub in the midfield, he's brilliant. Obviously provides that protection and for the defence as well. The only reason why I'm kind of hesitant about the deal is the numbers involved in it. He's on an expiring contract for one, and he's 31 years of age. There's varying talk from 18 million euros plus bonuses up to anything to up to 25 million euros. Again, for an instant impact, you know what you're getting, fantastic. But I'm just kind of looking at it on the other side of the argument as well. That's a lot of money for a 31-year-old now.
It is a lot of money, but again, you need to sort of, and I'm sure with how well the new management is performing so far in the market, they have probably looked at their allocation for the budget this year and sort of said, listen, this amount needs to go on proven talent that's going to come in, impact day one, and then this amount is the sort of slightly more risky, but obviously hopefully long-term progression. I think, again, not the most exciting name in terms of, people aren't desperate to sign him and things like that, but it's the sort of signing I was talking about when it comes to sort of the experienced head, someone coming into the squad with all the youth that you've got around there, someone that's proven he will have respect from the other players, he will know how to train at a decent level in the league. He will know how to perform week in, week out against the lesser teams. I know you and Jay spoke about last week that we'd see the improvement next year from the mentality side of things, and he brings that. I think it's just a clever signing of, again, the key with all signings, I think it's an upgrade to what you've got at the moment. You might say it's a fair bit of money, but it's almost a sure thing to come in and improve the starting 11 right away and X amount of money is worth spending on that, in my opinion. So it is a tad high. Certainly, if it starts creeping up too much past the sort of 20 million euros mark, I think you are getting in danger of, okay, are we spending too much for a short term thing? But mate, when the going's good and it's all this excitement, bring it on. For me, I think it's a really clever signing. And you look at Deulofeu. If you had decided to buy him, you're probably going to have to spend the same amount, I presume. What was it, 12 million quid or 30 million quid that Barca have got the option to buy back. So if they hadn't taken that up, you might have to spend 15 to 20 million euros. And I don't know, out of the two, who would you say is more proven and more likely to give you a really good season next year, or for the next year or two? Deulofeu's obviously got potentially longer run, but I think this boy can come in and probably more of a definitive thing. So, and obviously with sports science and everything like that behind us and things at the moment, 31, it's not 31 that it was 10, 15 years ago when you kind of looked at them like, bloody hell, they've been going forever, because, look what Ronaldo's doing at the minute. Do you know what I mean? And he's gone past that. Obviously, we're not comparing him to Ronaldo at all, but mate, I'm all for it.
No, fair enough. I mean, I don't know whether there's an element of it kind of not being the sort of, I don't know, the inspiring signing. Like, we've been linked with Fabregas, we've been linked with, these other boys around Europe. I don't know whether that plays into my thinking, whether I'm just like, if we're going to spend that much, then why not shell out that tiny bit more on a player that will sit in the midfield and be like the leader, lead by example, the experienced head. But
to me, we're a week in. We're a week into the window, mate. That one's still coming. Do you know what I mean? If things coming out, do you know what I mean? So I wouldn't worry too much. I do get what you mean in terms of, could we have gone on and just found that really inspiring? But again, the youths come in. I don't know. We can only go on what we've seen so far. Also remembering what's already in the squad and stuff. And I like it. Yeah, as I said, I like it. And there's these players that you sign occasionally that just go on to be a bit of a cult hero. They might come in for a couple of years and just have that really positive impact. Spurs have done it over the years. Again, not comparing him quite to him, but Van der Vaart was a bit older when he came to us and made a huge impact. Lesser sort of level, but Nico Kranjčar came in, was just a brilliant squad player, got loads of important goals, and again was just a real professional around the outfit. Was never in the press. Fans, he wasn't doing anything to annoy fans, but he was just consistently performing at a 7, 8 out of 10, and chipping in when needed, and that's where I see the signing fitting in.
No, fair enough. That's a good argument, and let's see if it gets wrapped up this week or not. In terms of other potential signings, we did mention him on the right-hand side, and Andrea Conti. There's talk that Milan are kind of pushing for him to be next after these two, because they kind of want a deal wrapped up by Thursday ahead of the Under-21s European Championships. I like him a lot. I've seen a lot of him this season. We know about his goal scoring from the right back position, which is incredible on its own. But his all-round game, I believe, his energy, getting up and down that right flank, the way he defends, he's just all-round a really, really solid player. And at 23, he could only get better. I know we've spoken about him before, and also to combine it with your point about Rodriguez, that versatility, we're basically sewing up the two right-hand side and the left-hand side, the full-back positions, very, very quickly, aren't we?
Mate, definitely. And do you know what I mean? And for the 10p or whatever you're going to pay out Atlanta for it, or whatever, it'll be another unbelievable signing. And again, one thing that it does bring, if you are able to swing it, is him and Kessie instantly have a relationship and a partnership and know how to help each other settle into the squad. So there's also that added element of that as well. But would be another great signing. All of a sudden you're looking at a defence that on paper, it looks amongst the best in the country. It's hard when you've got two centre backs with that amount of ability, and then your two wing backs, as I said, can do it all, can score goals, create assists, and defend properly. Yeah, do you know what I mean? I think it's really exciting, and importantly, obviously, the man behind him, Donnarumma, should be excited about having that unit in front of him to really have that chance of having an awesome defensive record and such, which is the next thing for him, really, and that side. So, yeah, mate, if you manage to pull that one off as well, Awesome. To you know what I mean, instantly then it's on, right, Montella, you've just got to get that attack going, because, you know, that end's going to take care of itself. Do you know what I mean? That they're all good enough players and so forth to look after the back. They're going to bring stuff going forward. It's on you. We want not just goals, but, you know, and to win games, we want excitement, because that's what that sort of setup allows you to go get.
Absolutely. You know, for me as well, a massive plus of this is that I feel Milan have neglected the back line and midfield for a long, long time. So the focus has always been on getting the best attackers that they possibly can, and then just putting together makeshift defences, whether it be loan deals, whether it be cheap sort of deals that they can get from other Serie A teams. There hasn't been this sort of push and strategy to fully sort of strengthen the back line as we're doing now. So to see us build from the back, and then obviously with, you know, more signings promised, this is a brilliant start for me. So no complaints at all. So in that case, we're basically sorted at right back, provided that we get Conte. We'll have to wait and see on that one. Rodriguez will hopefully sign tomorrow. That's left back sorted. Masaccio sorts out the centre back, and then you've got Kessie and potentially Bilia coming in for the midfield, which leaves us with pretty much, you know, we've got to get a replacement for Deulofeu, providing that he's not coming back, and a striker is absolutely essential, because we've seen what Bacca and Lapadula can do, but are they the kind of players that can take us up to the top three and, you know, competing in Europe? No. So those two areas do need to be addressed. Just to sort of talk about, sort of giving an update on the latest in terms of the striker, it all seemed to be pointing towards Morata, Jack. A couple of weeks ago, even last week, all the talk from Sky, from Gazzetta dello Sport was, you know, we've agreed personal terms with him, but it's just a case of now waiting for Champions League final to be done, agreeing on a transfer fee with Real Madrid, and, you know, Morata should be ours. They've massively backtracked on all that now. You know, he even said after the game, didn't he? You know, like, you know, I'm not committing to a return to Italy. Madrid's my team, it's my city. And then you've obviously got talk of Chelsea and United being interested in him. So we've gone from basically buying Morata, yep, it's a done deal, to actually, I don't think he's coming. He's not on the way, which is disappointing, because I think we all kind of made our case for Morata a week or so ago.
That's where all these rumours came from, mate. They all just listened to that, and they all thought, bloody hell, these boys know what they're on about. Let's write it up. Done deal.
It certainly sounds that way, yeah. But so I think we've kind of moved away from that now. I genuinely don't think we're going to see him at Milan next season. And that's kind of naturally shifted the focus back onto Belotti, Aubameyang. And again, I'm going to have to come to you and ask you for your opinion on him, because I personally haven't seen enough of him to sort of assess him as a player. But Moussa Dembele's been touted as a potential signing from Celtic. I know his goal record's amazing. He's done really well up in Scotland, but have you seen much of him? Do you think he's that kind of player that can, I think it's 30 million, 40 million odd euros being touted as a price tag. So what do you think of him as a player?
Yeah, I think, you know, first, as you said, I think Morata's probably done the water. It does look as though if he does leave, there are other suitors who've come to the fore that I think, you know, might get ahead of you. I think he might actually end up in the Premier League. I could actually see him ending up at any one of sort of United, Chelsea, maybe Liverpool, or, you know, or Arsenal as well. I could see him there. Aubameyang, I think it's all but done to PSG, if I'm right in saying. I don't know if you've seen the same things that I have. It did look as though, I think it was 70 million or something quite high, had been agreed to PSG. But Moussa Dembele, you know, one of the 5,000 Moussa Dembele's doing the rounds in Europe at the moment. There's loads of them, and all seem really, really good at football, which is strange. I think I'm going to call my son due in October Moussa Dembele. I think that's going to have to be the course, because that seems the way to the top. But it'd be an interesting one, because I have seen a lot of him, you know, again, not to ball fans, but Spurs were linked with him. We were actually, apparently it's all but done last summer before he decided last minute to go from Fulham to Celtic. And being a London player and all the rest, we do get to see quite a lot of him when he was there. I take the Celtic record with a pinch of salt. You know, I think Lapadula would score 40 goals in that league, to be honest. It's, do you know what I mean? They just went unbeaten, didn't they? And it's, you know, it's a bit of a joke. But it'd be an interesting one. I think he'd be more And honestly, I would take him more as a second striker, and for that money, I don't know if you're looking to fork that out as for someone that's not first choice. I think he would be bottom of the pile for the team, the players that we've spoken about, just on proven pedigree. But he's a great young talent. He's got electric, pace and strength combined. He's got a real, for such a young guy, he's got a real presence up there up top. He can finish in all sorts of clever ways. He's got the sort of worldy finishes, back heels and bicycles. You can see him banging them in and stuff. But then he's also got some poaching ability. So he's done it at every level. His record at Fulham wasn't actually jump off the page. It wasn't stuff where you were like, whoa, this guy is destined for the top. But at his age, you could just see there was something really, really to like about his all-round game and stuff. And he can head the ball. He's got stature. It's a huge, huge amount of potential. Which is great, but I don't know if you were going to, at Milan, if we're going to invest in all this money to get this squad ready to compete next year. It is a gamble. I don't think it's a sure thing. And I still think I can just see this new ownership wanting that cherry on the top, that massive shirt seller and all the rest of it. And I don't know if Dembele is going to quite be that one. In honesty, I think it's slightly, you still want slightly more proven. As you mentioned, obviously you've got Belotti still as an option, obviously a lot of money and stuff. A couple of other people that I might sort of throw their names out just as an idea would, Cavani. I know he's not nearing the end of his career and such, but still banging him in for PSG. And if they have signed Aubameyang, that might suggest a change of style for them. Obviously they haven't won the league this year, and Cavani might become available. He obviously did it at Napoli for many years and things. He might be an option. I think Lacazette from Lyon. It looked as though he was all but going to Atletico Madrid, but their ban's been upheld, so that stopped. Again, he's a really interesting option. Quite similar to Dembele, maybe a little bit shorter and maybe not quite as aerial threat, but certainly proved he can score goals at a higher level than Dembele and consistently. Again, I think he was second top scorer in Ligue 1 this year. So I think he's somebody that you should really explore, because it looks as though how close that Atletico Madrid deal got. The money wasn't crazy money. It looks as though a deal could be there to be had, but there might be some competition from some other big clubs, obviously, in Champions League and stuff for him. And then, I'm going to throw a name out there, and I'm really, really intrigued to see what your response is, really, in honesty. Zlatan.
Yeah.
Obviously finished up with United, said he's got no interest going back there this year. He's got this injury which will keep him out for a month or two. But just in terms of where you're at in your transition and stuff, obviously he's a legend and already at the club. He's proven he can still score for fun, score whenever he wants. He throws a really interesting option to me. I think that could be a really, really interesting fit. I don't know. What's your thoughts? What's the on the ground thoughts from Milan fans, do you think, on a potential Zlatan return?
I personally think the majority would welcome him back with open arms. It's almost like you said, I think he's that sort of central figure that you can still build around, and he can be sort of an inspiration, influential figure for the young guys in the dressing room and on the pitch. If there's a possibility to go for it, which I haven't really heard anything of yet, but I'd jump at that if that was an option. Again, whether that would be, with him and a Dembele as well, because
that's it. Because there's no transfer fee with him, is there?
Exactly.
That was sort of my thinking. If you get, Dembele and give him the first month or two whilst Zlatan's recovering, and then obviously Zlatan's going to cost a lot of wages and he's not the future, but he's going to get 20 odd goals easy next year, isn't he? There's no doubt about that in Syria and stuff. And I think the convincing for him at the moment is he seems to want to try new things, keep testing himself, pushing, to the highest level. And obviously no Champions League might be a slight struggle. But, I think of all the clubs he's been at, I would probably suggest Milan, probably the one that has his heart the most. And I don't know, I was just thinking, there might be some potential there.
Yeah, I'd absolutely love that. If that was an option, then I'd snap him up. I do believe he's got plenty left in the tank, and like I said, he can definitely deliver. He's proven it in Serie A countless occasions that he can do it, so why not? The only downside that I would point out is that would mean more talks with Mino Raiola, which I don't want. I'd rather see less of that man on my TV and on the internet, but Yeah, no, it's an interest. That's a very, very interesting option. That'd be pretty good. But the question that I kind of put out there, because it is, I think he's always been the most popular option due to his kind of ties with Milan, supporting them growing up, and he's Italian, he's young, he's bagged 25 odd goals in Serie A last season. Belotti still seems to be, the man that everyone's going back to now. Morata's out of the equation. But again, I'm split on this in the sense that there was talk that Milan would offer 70 million euros plus Juraj Kuchka and Mbaye Niang. And I put a poll out just to ask people if they thought it was a good deal or not. I was really shocked. 70% said yes, it was a good deal. I don't know how much of that plays into the fact that it's Belotti and they're like, anything for Belotti, let's just get him, because he's kind of Milan through and through in that sense. You kind of building that young Italian squad, ticks all those boxes, so just bring him in. He'll be the spearhead for the attack, job done. But I'm still just looking at that offer, if that is the one that's going to be on the table, and just wondering whether or not it's really that sensible. That's a lot of money. I would like to see the fee reduced. I understand the player exchange part, that's fine, and those two I can live without, so that's fine. It's just that 70 million to go with it. That's a lot of money for a 23-year-old who's pretty much only had one season at the top, if you like.
Yeah, it's a hell of a lot. I think, in honesty, those 70% people are probably saying yes just to get rid of Niang. No, 70 million in Niang, take him. But no, I agree. I completely agree. I think there's a hell of a lot there to like about that potential signing, and it all depends on if the management really see him as a consistent, top of the scoring charts sort of guy. And obviously last year he's sort of shown his first promise, but 70 million I would want an absolute dead cert. Do you know what I mean? That's not sort of throwaway money. If you work something, they're obviously good with their figures and stuff. If you could work something with 30 million up front and then the rest staggered over seasons, he scores 20 plus, every season he scores, maybe give another 10 or 15 million or whatever it is, up to a maximum or something like that. If you could stagger something in terms of goals scored and performance and maybe there's quite often transfers in terms of international appearances and things like that, isn't there?
Yeah.
And stuff. Do you know what I mean? If there was some way to work it like that, all of a sudden you're like, what, over the course of 3 years, 70 million isn't too bad, but up front, that it is a lot of money for someone who, as you said, sort of one season, really impressive. But again, I think he's got some really good attributes, but he also has attributes that aren't, how can I put it? Like he's not got electric pace. He's not the greatest finisher. He's not, beating men and scoring worldies and things like that. Do you know what I mean? He hasn't got that sort of X factor, is he? He's just, a really good striker. And so he could be a really good goal scorer and stuff, but I'm not sure he's got the sort of the risk reward level that I would look for at 70 million and such. But again, do you know what I mean? It's a new world that we live in and a new world that Milan fans live in. So, do you know what I mean? If they decide to do it, no one's going to complain, are they? Unless he comes in and, ends up like a backer, which I don't think he would do that. I think he is, just because of his effort and his youth. And as you said, the fact he's such a Milan guy, might even take him to that next level, and all of a sudden you're going, bloody hell, we've got a snippet. this guy's different level.
Absolutely. Well, put it this way, I think out of the list of the strikers that are still, being linked with the club, I'd put him at the top of it. I think just for what he brings, I almost see it as in a way of that. You look at Morata, he's toing and throwing what he's going to do next season. Aubameyang, like you said, PSG. Dembele, I've not really heard anything from him or, to suggest that he's dying for a move to Milan. That aspect of it, that Belotti probably is buzzing inside, like let's get this transfer done, I want to play for Milan. That kind of sways me towards him as well, just that he's got that sort of motivation to do well at Milan. So
yeah,
if we can snap him up, great. If we can kind of just work around that fee, like you said, whether it's staggered like that would be perfect. But that is as one to look out for. Another interesting one, which I don't know whether anyone's picked up on. If they have, sorry for stealing your idea. But again, more so as a backup option, considering we've got so many games next season, if we get through to the Europa League. He's going to be available on a free. And I know Raiola's said that he's going to Dortmund next season, but another former Milan player. Why not take a punt on Balotelli as a sort of backup option?
Oh,
Again, I'm not saying bring him back, make him the star man. He's going to be playing week in, week out. Rely on him heavily to do the business for us. But if we're looking for a backup option to play in Europa League now, during the week and come off the bench in Serie A and whatnot, does that not tickle your fancy a little bit, Jack, or am I being completely crazy with that one?
mate,
it's another Milan boy. I know he's had his chance and he didn't really take it, but that's another thing that plays into my mind. Surely, as a squad player, bring him back.
I think it's like that crazy ex-bird that you used to see, but you can't help but drunkenly text hoping they've changed a bit. Can you? Do you know what I mean? It's that sort of. I think everybody would like the Balotelli we were once upon a time promised, but in honesty, I think that ship sailed. I just think more so in line with the style of football that Montella should be wanting to play, and with these new signings is going to have the ability to play. Balotelli isn't going to work his socks off for this club, no matter what he brings. And I know sometimes off the bench, just a bit of flair and stuff can be useful. But, we've seen all the pictures of him at training when everyone else is doing sit-ups and he's just lying down, looking around and stuff like that. You know what I mean? And I just don't think it would be the right character fit for the squad at the moment. It's interesting. As you said, no fee. And he's obviously got his ties there and he might feel like he's still got something to prove. And we know... he's had an all right season over in France, to be fair to him, and all the rest. But for me, I'd pass on that one, if I'm honest.
No, fair enough. That's quite all right. just thought I'd throw that one in. But no, good stuff. All right, well, we'll have to keep an eye on that anyway. I think that's going to be the last sort of piece added to the puzzle once we've sorted out defence and midfield. But
that's going to be the showstopper, isn't it? That's going to be the one where they're like, well, I think they even said something along the lines, wasn't it? Like, you haven't seen nothing yet, or something like that. Which is really exciting.
Absolutely. No, looking forward to that. I just want to take a very small segment of this podcast. I'm going to name it the Fasone Mirabelli Appreciation Segment. Jack, I can't remember a single quote from Fasone does most of the talking, so from him, that I didn't like or love, in fact, whether it be talking about players that potentially don't want to be at the club anymore, whether it be potential transfer signings, whether it be, players coming into the club that are confirmed. He's doing an absolute stellar job, and I think we spoke about it a few weeks ago in terms of they were saying a lot, these two, Fasone and Mirabelli, and it was a case of, are you going to back it up? I know, again, we're only a week, 2 weeks into the window. It's not even open yet, of course, but what they've done so far has been so refreshing and so positive that it's just changed the absolute atmosphere at the club. It's given everybody a lift. I'm looking at the weekend. They were in Cardiff for the Champions League final, but they were meeting agents left, right and centre. Jorge Mendes, they were seen talking about, getting lists of clients off him, potential transfer targets. They've come in and they've just made things happen. And, like we said, they've delivered on their words, and you can't knock them in sort of any aspect at all, can you?
No, amazing. I think they've surpassed anything that we could have, ever looked for, really, haven't they? The fact they've come in and as you said, stuck true to their word. I think one thing that's sort of really important is, yes, they're out there and they're actually obviously trying to improve this team, but they're also out there kind of just reminding these major players now that, Milan are still here. We're still a major factor in this, in this game we call football, and don't forget about us. Do you know what I mean? Like we want dibs on all these next superstars and all the rest of it. And it might not be for now, it might not be for next summer, but Milan's name is getting back out there for a positive reason, which is over the moon with what they've done so far. And to think, for all those weeks and months we were nervous, saying we don't want it, or we did want it and we didn't. Christ, if we could have fast forwarded and seen this. Do you know what I mean? You bite your hand off to have 50% of what they've given already.
Absolutely. No messing around. And like I said, a couple more signings this week, and who knows, keep them coming, boys.
You're going to be bored once they're all done, aren't you? You're going to be like, just start up a B team. Let's go sign.
Oh dear, I just want this pre-season to start. Bring it on.
Yeah.
No, good stuff. One small takeaway, just a very brief note. Of all the talk of the signings, there's one man in particular who made his comeback from injury at the weekend. That's Giacomo Bonaventura. Scored a couple of goals, grabbed a couple of assists in Primavera game. Absolutely brilliant to see him back in action. He's crucial to us in the first half of last season and the season before that. Gives us that real creative spark, something that we badly lacked in the second half of last season. And just absolutely perfect to see him back playing. Hopefully get a full pre-season under his belt, ready for the Europa League qualifiers, ready for the start of the Serie A season. And he, in my opinion, Jack, I think he's probably just as important, if not more, than any potential new signing. I think he's that consistent, that good, that important to us that I just can't wait to see him back in action next year.
Yeah, and obviously the most important thing is it lets me crack my Falaraki water park gag every time that he's on the pitch again, isn't it? So, no, great news, as you said. There's some players that, yeah, do you know what I mean? You're just desperate for. He was a huge loss, and again, now he's going to come back. Kessie next to him and all the rest, and you expect the standard to even go even higher. So fantastic to get another guy in his prime. Hopefully, injuries behind him now, and full steam ahead.
100%. On a less sort of positive note, we do still have issues with Gianluigi Donnarumma's contracts. I've got no qualms or any sort of complaints in terms of how Milan have dealt with it. I think I've said this previously in last week's podcast. Essentially, just to give sort of a brief overview of the situation, as we're led to believe from reports and whatnot, there's a 4.5 million to €5 million contract on the table for him. Club are obviously backing up what they said at the start of the summer when the takeover was completed in terms of signings. You've got all this positivity running through the squad, running through the club at all levels, and it's just a case of constant delays. Raiola's meddling, of course, and he's getting the brunt of it from the ultras now as well. They've released a statement slamming him, calling on Milan to stop dealing with him. I just almost feel like, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but okay, yes, he's the agent, he's there to be the fall guy as well, but where's Donnarumma in all of this? Surely this is his club. This is the club that he's supported all his life. It's his dream to play for them. They've given him the massive opportunity at 16 years of age. He's now one of the established figures in the team, and long way ahead. But he's one of the, not one of the top goalkeepers in Europe, but he's working towards that. Does he not have the overriding say as to what happens in this situation? Does he not say, look, yep, that's fine by me, Raiola. No more meddling, no more pushing me out there into the market. I want to stay at Milan. Let's sign this deal and get it over and done with. Because at this point, I don't think he's completely lost the fans, but there is definitely an element, you can see it all over Twitter, that there's a lot of fans that are unhappy with him now as well, as opposed to just Raiola. And I think the whole situation has kind of left a sour taste in the mouth. What's your take on in terms of Donnarumma himself and what he can do to kind of fix the situation, if you like?
It's a really tough one for me. I'm going to be really boring, I'm afraid, here, listeners, and give you quite a pragmatic answer to why this is such a hard decision. He has a say for sure, and I would almost be 100% sure that he is saying, I want to be at Milan, let me sign the contract, and that side. But I think we have to remember that, there's hell of a lot of money in football and sport in general, but their working life, working career life, as it were, is sort of 10 to 15 years max at the top. If they're in the top tier of talent and stuff, and they play a contact sport where it can only take one injury for their career to be over. So an agent's stance on this is to take as a sure thing as you possibly can. You don't know what is around the corner. So if there's a title winning club playing Champions League football and willing to offer you more money than you can dream of, then this could be a once in a lifetime offer, that you might not ever see again. It is, you get injured or you have a bad season and your strength for bargaining will never be there again. And of course, players have to have self-belief that form isn't going to dip, and you can't concern yourself with injuries, else it will play too much on your mind. But that's what the agents will be saying, and it's hard not to listen to that. So, as much as us fans, we want loyalty and these, players to show their commitment and stuff. These people, they're in positions where, in players like Donnarumma, they can change their lives forever, for the better, for forever. And it's hard not to focus on that sometimes. So what Raiola will be saying is, listen, you might never get an offer ever again from Real Madrid, from Manchester United. You may never, ever have that opportunity again. They're offering to, triple what Milan are putting on the table for you, and you can go there right away, lift trophies, become the biggest superstar you'll ever have the chance to do it. That might not ever come again. So just because it's there on the table this year doesn't mean it's going to be there on the table next year. So, that's sort of the pragmatic approach in terms of, as I said, I'm all but sure Donnarumma, young guy, just loves playing football, probably not even that fussed about the money side. 18, 19, what does he really need that money for? He seems really professional on that side of it. So he's probably saying, sign me up, let me get going. But Raiola, as I said, we know the sort of agent that he is and how he likes to tout his talent across the market and things like that. As I said, that's what he will be saying. Listen, you could earn £10 million next year. So if you get injured in 2 years, you got 20 million behind you for and I know, as I said, 4.5 million a year, it's a lot of money and all the rest of it, and even if there's an injury and things like that. But what if he comes in next year, has a really poor season, Milan actually go, you know what, we need someone a bit more experienced. They sign him, all of a sudden, how many footballers only have a career of 2, 3, 4 years and they fade away to the lower leagues and all the rest of it, 90% probably, of sort of players and stuff. There's such a huge amount. So that is what Raiola, and as much as we hate him and all the rest of it, that is what he does, and why him and Jorge Mendes and these guys are the top of their game, because they take the decision they take it away from the heart and put it in the head for players. And same as everybody listening, if there was a career opportunity, we've spoken about it, the Chinese league and things like that. If there was a career opportunity, and you loved your company and you wanted to stay there and you're like, no, but I'm happy, I've got it good. And then someone came and said, listen, you might only be doing this for 5 more years. If you go there, you will reach every goal you could have ever dreamed of in that 5-year period whilst earning 3 tons of money. Oh, it's pretty hard. It's pretty hard to not say that. So I think people have to remember that's what Ryder did. He's not necessarily saying, don't stay at Milan, I hate Milan, suck. You should definitely get out of it. What he is saying is, listen, you go here, you're the face of Nike, you're the face of Adidas, you're winning Champions League next year, you're lifting that trophy, stood next to Ronaldo, do you know what I mean? Whatever it might be. Yeah. And it's quite hard not to listen to that. Do you know what I mean? How could it not be?
No, when you put it like that, I think you've quelled my anger towards him in 5 minutes, because I'd be lying, I'd be a hypocrite. That scenario you've just mentioned there with the Chinese. Like, if that happened to me, I think I'd take it. So
yeah, I think it is. And I think it's, and again, it is. Recently in football news and stuff, there's been stuff about mental health issues and this sort of side of it. And one thing that really brought to the fore for me was, we're too quick to move away from these people being humans, that they're just pieces at our club that we move around. We're quick to say no player's bigger than a club. So why should he say that the club's bigger than his career, and things like that? Do you know what I mean? Like, it's that sort of, these are humans that need to look at that. I don't know his family setup and things like that, but I don't know his own drivers and all the rest. But as I said, that's what Ryan will be pitching him. And I think that's where the fans need to just say, listen, it might be our club's fault for letting him get to a state where there's only 1 year left on his contract, and we're in this sort of take it or leave it sort of situation. Do you know what I mean? That's probably where the faults have really come. You'd like to think if he was still with 2-3 years, you'd be in no place of panic in the contract. He's got all these players around you, and you can deliver everything that he wants in the next year or two. But the issue comes is, have you got the time to convince him and fit that side of it, isn't it? So. Yeah. Really, really tough one for me, and I'm always a little bit hesitant to as I said, to jump on the players too much, but at the same time, from the commercial side, you've got to appreciate what goes on in football as well.
No, absolutely, can't argue with that. That's a fair enough assessment. What I will say, just to add to that, is that I think in an ideal world, of course, I want him to stay. I want him to sign that contract and put this to bed as soon as possible. And again, hat tip to Fasone and Mirabelli in that sense, because I believe, again, reportedly, that they've set a deadline. They want an answer by June 16th, I think it is now, that before Donnarumma goes to the under-21s, which is, again, brilliant sort of decision making. And you've got to find that out before he goes. Otherwise, you don't want to be sitting here in end of July when the Europa League qualifiers are coming around and you still don't know where you stand. So get that answer out of him by then, which is perfect. But I almost look at it from just Milan's appeal, globally and just in terms of the next generation. Like, I almost see Donnarumma as that sort of face. Again, a lot of kids you ask these days, like I know from personal experience, my nephews, if I ask them, who do you know from Serie A? There's a very select few, but they'll always know Donnarumma purely because he's created that buzz about him. This 16-year-old kid's come through and he's the established figure now. He's the main guy that everyone seems to know. And I just think from a global appeal, looking at the bigger picture for Milan as a brand and all that stuff, like you mentioned, Donnarumma goes to Nike, he's the face of Nike if he goes to United or Real Madrid. I see that at Milan, so that's kind of builds into my sort of argument and hope that he stays. And I think it's imperative for both parties in that sense. So yeah, it's a worrying one again still, but I don't think we're going to wait too much longer to find out the answer. So 10 days or so. So we shall have to see how it plays out.
Yeah, see what happens, mate. All I would say is, he's a top draw keeper. He's obviously still very young. His career's ahead of him, and obviously coming up through the youth, you'd love him to be that pillar that you build from and all the rest. If you lose him, there's good goalies out there, mate. Do you know what I mean? It's not that there are replacements. It's not a position that I would be like, we've got Lloris at Spurs, who I love to bits. He's, a top draw goalkeeper and all that. But I always say to people, if he decided he wanted to go back to PSG, and do his things there, and we've got a good fee for him, I think goalkeepers are replaceable. I think there's so many good goalies around the globe at the moment that, you can suffice. You look at, obviously, I think Jason mentioned last week, Szczesny, I think he's going to Juventus now and things, but the season he had at Roma, he was considered, an above average, a good goalkeeper, and he's proven now that he's, potentially a great goalkeeper, and I think there's so many of those out there that, you'd be okay.
Yep. No. Well, we shall see. Potential replacements maybe already being planned. We never know with these two in the management. So we'll have to wait and see.
Exactly.
Good stuff. Quick debate sort of question, Jack. Obviously, you had the Champions League final at the weekend. I kind of want to know from you, in the sense that, do you, as a Tottenham fan, of course, for those that don't know, do you support the other English teams in European competition, barring Arsenal, I'm guessing? Because from a personal perspective, I don't think I was that bothered at the weekend. Like, I wasn't desperate to see Juve win just because they're an Italian side. I'm also kind of wanted it for Buffon, obviously, to complete the collection. Would desperate to see him lift the trophy. But Juve as a whole, I wasn't that bothered. Naturally, there was loads of hate for them after they lost. They're very well supported in Italy, but they're also very well hated in Italy from every other club. Fans from other clubs. What's your take on that? Do you look at other teams, other English teams in Europe, and wish them well? You want to see them do well, or for you is it just Tottenham and nothing else?
I think it's changed a little bit. As a kid, I'd always support United in Europe. They had a lot of British players who were sort of also heroes for England, and they felt like they were really representing England in the tournaments and things. So I'd always cheer on for them. But in recent years, they just do my head in. They got a boring style. They've got a lack of identity as a club. And I hate Mourinho. So that one's gone. Obviously, I'd never support Chelsea or Arsenal. I would actually always go out my way to support the other team. And such when those two teams are playing. Liverpool, I don't mind. I'll cheer them on a bit, I guess, but not fussed either way. I would say I would cheer on City, as not as British, but I just love a lot of their players. I love the way they've played and things. Company, Aguero, Silva, Torre, De Bruyne in recent years. I just love watching them playing football and such. And whilst their club identity has changed massively, they are still just a local Manchester club, that is in their fan base. So don't have to put up with Man City fans all the time. I'm okay when they're all happy and cocky because I don't have to deal with it like the other supporters and all the rest of it. So I will cheer on City, and in obviously when Spurs are in the Champions League, they're obviously focused and stuff. But in recent years, a couple of years when we haven't been, City are the team that I'd love to go on and win it. Ultimately, there is a little bit of league v league. I think we would all like the champions of Europe in our league to a degree as well, in terms of, it's that little, I remember when Premier League were getting 3 out of 4 semi-finalists, and it was like, right, we're undoubtedly the best league in the world. And then Bundesliga came about and suddenly we're flying. And now, obviously, La Liga have just all but sewn it up for the last decade or whatever it's been, and all the rest of it. So, and obviously Serie A had their time with Milans and Juventuses and Inter Milans and things like that as well. So, I think there is a little bit of that I'd want it, but no, I think the rivalry is too intense in the domestic leagues, isn't it? To really want, would I really want my mate that's a Man U supporter being able to go, yeah, but we won the Champions League. I don't know if I could deal with that, in honesty. But I think there is sometimes a part of you that you can't help but go like, come on and all the rest. But no, as I said, City are the only team that I genuinely have well wishes for in the tournament. The rest of them, yeah, as I said, most of them I'd rather they lost, and Liverpool not too fast.
Fair enough. I think I'm very similar. I think Napoli and Roma, watching them in Europe, I'll probably support them and want them to. Well, Inter, obviously not. The sooner they're out, the better. But yeah, Juve, I'm indifferent. I don't hate them. I don't like them. But I think it was more of a personal thing for Buffon rather than the Juve as a whole. But plenty of crying Jordan faces, by the way, were popping on memes galore.
Gotta love that meme. I think there's an element as well. I'm sure everyone listening as well, and every football fan, there's always sort of underdogs and things like that, isn't there? I think I'd always cheer against Real Madrid and Barcelona and Bayern because it's just, they're so good and they're on such a different planet. It's just fun when they get beat and stuff, isn't it? So it's always really exciting when, Juve, who are Galactico in their own right, but when someone like that comes up, or an Atletico Madrid, or I don't know, Monaco this year and stuff like that, you can't help but get behind them. And, you don't really care where they're from, but it's just nice sometimes seeing someone give it to the big boys.
Definitely. That's a very good point. Okay, good stuff, Jack. Let's got a few Twitter questions to get through, so let's crack on with those. First one's from Stefano. He's got a 3-prong question, so thank you again for Stefano for the questions. Kind of answered the first two, but just as a sort of finish it off, the argument sort of thing. First question is, who do you believe will be signed, Belotti or Morata? Again, I'm going to go with Belotti now. I think Morata's kind of sailing away into the distance. I don't think that's going to happen, and the way things are kind of pointing towards, I think Belotti would be first choice. So Belotti for me. Jack?
Yeah, if you had to say one was going to get signed, it'd be Belotti.
Yep. Second question, of course, is Bilia. Is the Bilia move a good one? I think you've set your stall out and made your argument a very good one at that to suggest.
Keen on that?
Yep.
Yeah.
And yeah, I'd have to agree again, my reservation with the price tag, but for that balance, got to have experience, got to have established players in there. So yeah, I'd go along. I'd say that's a good one. And then the third and final one, would I rather have Keita Balde from Lazio or bring back Deulofeu?
Balde.
I'm torn, Jack. I've got to be honest. I do like him, Keita Balde. I do think he's a real top prospect, good player. And obviously, he's had a great season just gone with Lazio. But there's just something not right for me. It doesn't click with me in terms of his overall sort of influence on a team. Again, I've got reservations with Deulofeu, so I'm not quite sure what my answer is going to be here. But considering the stick I gave Deulofeu, even though he did okay while he was here, I think I've got to go Keita Balde. But I'd still, with reservations, I still would like to see him, really kick on. But Keita Balde for you?
Yeah, for sure. I think both of them have flaws and that side of it. But I think, as I said it when you got him. I know he had a quick start to his Milan career, but I just don't know how much I rate Deulofeu, and honestly, he just doesn't do it for me. So yeah, do you know what I mean? I'd take a punt on the Lazio guy.
Fair enough. Next question's from Michael. Who do you think will start the Europa League qualifiers in July and August? Donnarumma, Storari, who's just signed a renewal, Gabriel, or someone else? He points out that's only 6 weeks away. As I kind of mentioned, I think that deadline's in place for Donnarumma, and I personally believe that he will sign, and this whole situation will be quickly, I don't know, entirely forgotten, but I think it will be swept away, and he'll have his future sorted by then, well in advance. So for me, Jack, I'm going to go Donnarumma will start those qualifiers. What about you?
Yeah, I'm with you there, mate. I think he'll be in between the sticks.
Good man. And the final question comes from Joey. Why, in terms of Donnarumma again, why would you leave a club you love and grew up with for barely more money? And I believe, Jack, you've pretty much nailed the answer to that question. Again, I made my argument. Like I said, Milan through and through. That big offer's on the table. Club is making plans. Everything's there for you. Stick around and be the face of it. But I think you've made your point in terms of you got to consider, especially from the agent's perspective, you've got to consider the other options on the table as well.
Yeah. As I said, again, it's a great offer Milan have been able to now put together, and the business they've done so quickly has only strengthened that. And there's one really good solid offer on the table there. But as I said, when you look at some of the other stuff that can be stacked up on the other side, Milan just aren't in a position to compete. If a United, right, you can go to, say, United, the richest club in the world, get a lot more money, be pushing for a Premier League title, winning trophies next year. You're under Mourinho, one of the most revered managers in the world, even if he is hated. You're going to become a global superstar, not just an Italian superstar and things like that. You've just got to take an honest approach and sort of say there is reason to debate that as an option. It's not quite as cutthroat and simple as, I just want to stay with my boy club because I love them. Do you know what I mean? There's more to it. And for a career prospect, that's what we have to look at here in terms of you only get one shot at this career. And these are the big calls that a lot of people get it right. But we've also seen a lot of players, make awful decisions. How many players have you gone, bloody hell, they've jumped up to that club or they've gone to that club and then all of a sudden they're on the bench and, 5 years later, you're like, oh, I didn't know they were playing in Russia or something like that. Do you know what I mean? It happens more than you'd expect.
Yeah, no, absolutely. It's fair enough. All right, Jack, good stuff. I think that wraps us up this week, unless you've got anything else you'd like to add.
No, I think just to end on a slightly sad note before we leave, obviously Cheick passing away, at a young age during training, he collapsed and passed away. Obviously part of the footballing community. We always want to give a shout out, amongst all the other atrocities that's going on in Europe and such as of late. A bit sad time out there, but I think the key with all of it is to keep pushing, enjoy life, don't get too wound up by the small things, just enjoy it. And certainly when you got all this excitement at Milan, just focus on the positives. That's what you got to do.
Certainly echo those sentiments, Jack. Good, well said. Good stuff. For those that are interested, you can keep up to date with all the latest Milan news at acmilantalk.com and obviously on Twitter and Facebook, so keep an eye on all that.
I was going to think about doing a bit of a transfer piece for you, but it looks like all the business will be done before I write anything.
Plenty of business to be done, Jack. I'm always welcoming your suggestions, so yeah, we'll get that published. Hopefully have Jason back next week, so the dream team will be complete again. But until next week, Jack, pleasure as always.
Yeah, pleasure. Can't wait to see what the week ahead brings.
Good man, and we'll be back next week.